Okay, and we're live. Vineet, thanks very much for joining me today.
My pleasure, man. I always enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, it's been a while now. This is probably our third or fourth one. We won't go through all the pleasantries again. I'm sure most people here have already know who you are and about yourself and your company. So let's get right into it. And I know when we were having the discussion today, we wanted to, I suppose, go through a little bit of, I suppose, give people some information on, I suppose, the industry as a whole, on some of the platforms, a little bit about Teleport Me and what you've coming down the line. But I suppose let's start with the big thing, I suppose, on everybody's minds, and I know it's on yours as well, and I'm sure you have a lot to say about it. Matterport IPO. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a shitstorm. I think people should stay away from it. You can also ride the wave. I think there's going to be, because they're trying too hard. Like I got an ad from Matterport, and probably most people would have gotten it on their Facebook, and it's like a course to help you become a better Matterport agent. And on the ad itself, they put planning to go public in this year. I mean, when typically companies go public, you're not supposed to like broadcast it till the S1 is filed and everything. There's like an actual process for it. But because the way Matterport is doing it is they're doing it a different way, which is called a SPAC, and this is like the new, the fun thing that people are doing these days to make money. Is what they do is they take a shell company, that is not a shell company, but like a already listed company.
Yeah.
And this was done a lot in Australia before. I think also probably in the UK, but
a lot of the prop tech companies over the past few years have kind of went that route, haven't they?
Yeah. So I think that's what they're doing, and it's really funny because the CEO really doesn't give a shit. I've heard two of his interviews on CNBC one, and I think one on I don't remember the other one. And honestly, he does not talk about any future plans. He doesn't talk about anything. So my vote would be to stay away from it. But having said that, the stock market is an absolute shitstorm at this point. And if you think that the stock market is going to go high, by the time Matterport goes public, I think that it would be a good opportunity. But I think otherwise I would stay away, because they don't have the fundamentals. Like they raised 160 million or something like that, and something like that, right? Or 100 million plus, I think, and they're making 89 million in revenue.
Yeah.
So after like 11 years, that's more a good sign.
So is this a smart move by Matterport when they might see? So there hasn't been, I suppose, like there hasn't been many features in the past couple of years. Is it the investors cashing out, or is it them trying to cash out before the next wave of, I suppose, tech kind of, I suppose, overtakes them?
I think the CEO is trying to cash out. The CEO he's a professional CEO. He's not a founder, and like I told you, I think in the previous talks, I don't keep in touch with them anymore, but I used to know them, and we used to have lunch together. Very smart guys. They got thrown out of the company. It's basically like people trying to get their money back, investors especially. So I do think that there is that part, which is the investors want to make their money back. And the other part, obviously, is the sort of the LiDAR-based systems that are going to be more and more prevalent. So their competitive advantage is going to go down. Matterport has always survived, with basically suing people. I think GeoCV is a good example where they kind of got sued out of business, and the same team joined Occipital. And Occipital, interestingly, the founders left right after, I think, the GeoCV thing. So that whole space, which was kind of under the scanning mapping industry, is under a big problem because of the iPad LiDAR tech advent. So I think there's going to be a major reshuffle, and hopefully Teleport Me will kind of emerge. I don't know. I mean, it's really difficult to say how the scanning tech from the LiDAR iPads and later Androids are going to pan out. But the competitive advantage that Matterport had is gone. And I think they said that they had like a 80 plus, 90 plus increase in their revenue this year because of COVID.
Well, 500% increase, I think,
500?
in their subscribers anyway. They've an increase in 500% subscribers, yeah, since 2000, in last year, yeah.
So think about that, right? Think about that kind of increase, and yet their revenues is only 89 million. So I'm just.
What's happening? I know that they are at about, like, I know I just have to have the numbers in front of me here because I went through it before, and they are at about 56% gross margin, they said. So what is happening? They also did, I suppose, is they also announced kind of coincided, I suppose, randomly enough, that they have 70 new job openings as well. So where do you see, I suppose, them going? Like, is there going to be a Pro 3? Will they have to try and satisfy their, like, they do have, I suppose, the biggest user base. So how do they kind of keep those users? I'm sure that's something that they could probably have to think about. So is there something coming down the line, I wonder?
So I think generally the space itself is really small. I mean, for a public company, it's a very small space. Unfortunately, they have raised a lot of money, so they have to justify a valuation. And that's why they're trying to go public using the SPAC, which they're trying to, like, basically have a pop, keep the stock price high for a while, and then kind of let the market decide where the space is going to be. I mean, we all in this virtual tour space, obviously our lives are intertwined with this space, but this space itself is so small, in the context of the larger market. So they're trying to go public at a $3 billion valuation. Is that what they were saying? Or they're trying to raise?
Yeah, just under 3, I think.
I mean, that's a little too rich in my opinion. It's a small market, I mean, yes, they're the dominant player, but it's a small market. And yeah, I forgot the question, to be honest, but I think that it's just, I don't see it, man. I really don't see how they can justify a $3 billion valuation at that revenue rate. Like, I don't think it's gross margin. I think they are using some kind of like funky accounting principles. So even if you're looking at at an 89 million revenue or 100, revenue rate, 3 billion valuation is what, like 30x, 20x multiple on sales.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. That's almost like Tesla valuation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder, is that, I know that I saw figures being thrown around about their user base, and I saw somewhere claim that they have nearly 200,000 subscribers monthly. And I'm wondering how true those figures are, because if that is the case, could there be something like, I suppose, a real possibility would be down the line is that they could be acquired purely for their user base and the IP, and actually I suppose we could see something new altogether.
I mean, who would acquire them?
I suppose for their user base. I mean, if they have the biggest in a relatively I suppose new industry, surely that's a lot of value for other companies down the line.
Down the line, maybe. I mean, I see maybe I really don't know. I think they could get acquired, but not at the valuation that they want it to be. Their tech is really good. I mean, I still think the tech is far ahead than anybody in the industry. But I'm trying to think of who would acquire a tech like that. Like, either the big guys would want to acquire it, the Googles or the Microsoft or the Ubers, if they find something interesting. Unfortunately, the problem with Matterport is that they are still IR based. They're not LiDAR based, and so a lot of the new companies want LiDAR technology. They don't want IR technology. IR is kind of the old school technology. So I don't know if they're that valuable for companies that are trying to innovate in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, correct me if I'm wrong, but I suppose wasn't the main purpose of when they first came out, and still their system today is that I suppose they can. It's the file sizes are a lot smaller in terms of the mesh versus, say, I suppose, the more comprehensive kind of LiDAR based. So it means that we can, I suppose, it can be, I suppose, quickly uploaded, quickly processed, and that we can quickly get it. I suppose the quick turnaround time is kind of a big factor of that. So really, I suppose, when you look at it, I suppose they're quite narrowed down in the middle. They can't really go go the one step further because it kind of steps outside the boundaries which they set, which made them successful in the first place. So really, there's not much wiggle room when you look at it in terms of that, because the bigger players in the game, the likes of Leica and all, like, I suppose theirs is based on the kind of the high processing power and the high kind of, I suppose, density in terms of the mesh and the point clouds. But Matterport have very much confined themselves into space, and that's what's made them successful. So you really, I suppose, have to wonder and think about where can they actually go from here, because if they step outside of that, they've turned into something else altogether. Is that correct?
Yes, and they lose their competitive advantage as soon as they step into the LiDAR space, right? Like, I think what makes them competitive is exactly what you said, which is, fast turnaround time, smaller sizes, web-based, quick upload, quick loading of the models. So all those things are extremely great, and Matterport has done a great job of doing that. But if they want to get into what the bigger players are interested in, which is kind of LiDAR-based kind of point cloud systems, creating computation into spatial augmentation and all of that stuff, I think, LiDAR, the content that Matterport has is absolutely useless. Not absolutely useless. I mean, you could do something with it, but I think that we discussed this in our previous talk about like how Matterport is actually low resolution for computation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I was listening to, I suppose, in my past few discussions with people as well, quality has been something that's being talked about more and more. I know in your past few discussions, I was looking at some of your interviews, that's been the case as well. So in terms of, I suppose, in terms of maybe, let's talk about a little bit maybe about Teleport V, maybe, and maybe your plans for this year. What do you have coming down the line?
Make a lot of money. I'm just kidding, but I mean, I think like I said, we just want to keep building our platform. We've had a good run. We were on AppSumo last year. We kind of launched there, and we did really well. We were probably one of the fastest selling products there. We have, I think, like 39 out of 45 stars. So we've done quite well, and no scammy techniques, no fake reviews, none of that shit. And so I'm very happy about that. Everyone's that using our product from that segment really likes it. I mean, obviously, it's really difficult for me to convince anybody from your group or like any of the other virtual tour groups to switch from 3D Vista or Cloud Panel or Kula or what may you, I don't know, was there? Yeah, all of these people to our platform because they've either invested in it, they've spent time learning the platform, and most platforms and most softwares kind of do the same thing. There's really not much difference. Like, you could cherry pick certain things, you could cherry pick resolution, you could cherry pick ease of use, cost, all of these things. But I think the tool wise, most tools are relatively similar. I think what we want to focus on is kind of becoming, more and more API based and more cloud based. I think that, we constantly get into this argument, and I didn't want to argue, but I wanted to debate Nick on.
Yeah, I know you want to. We might set that up again.
Yeah. I kept asking because he's a big big promoter of 3D Vista.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. And I think that there's a clear distinction between what the future is going to be, and it's not going to be desktop software and anything developed on desktop software. So I think that's the thing that if there is any mountain I want to die on, that would be the mountain I would die on, is that stop investing, $1,000 into desktop software. Like that stuff is done. It's not a reflection for 3D Vista. I think they're a phenomenal company. They have a great product. I think their product is the best in the market. But until unless they don't kind of innovate on more web-based, API-based solutions, I think that they will kind of have problems extending their own capabilities. That's the only issue I have. But otherwise, I think all platforms are kind of similar.
Yeah, absolutely, and I see that as well. Like, I do see very much a need for a self-hosted solution in some aspects because it comes down to maybe privacy and I suppose sensitive data, but it's really only focused around a couple of industries. Besides that, you're only going to hinder yourself and limit capabilities, and I suppose the the actual, I suppose, end result, which is, I suppose, what can you actually help a client achieve with the virtual tours. You're only going to limit it by that. But I do see very much a need in things. And that's been one of the biggest challenges for Matterport users for many years, was that there was no option for that self-hosted, and no option when you were talking to, I suppose, bigger industries, bigger clients. I suppose Matterport was something they, I suppose, like the look of, and I suppose in terms of, I suppose, user experience functionality, although I suppose the gap has closed, but there wasn't that, I suppose, you weren't allowed, I suppose, self-hosted. So why, I suppose, well, maybe in terms of I suppose Teleport Me, like what are you, I suppose, in terms of the API connections that are coming, how far away, or when can people expect that for your platform? What are your, I suppose, overall goals in terms of that?
Well, I think I want to touch on the self-hosted part, because I think a lot of people either misunderstand it. I mean, I think if you look at the general software space, other than kind of WordPress, which is the only self-hosted solution, and even with WordPress, the largest user of WordPress is WordPress.com, which is not a self-hosted solution, and most of them. So this idea of self-hosted, I believe in self-hosting. I believe in self-hosting, but I don't think that is a good business solution. Like your email is not self-hosted, right? I mean, I don't know, YouTube, nothing is self-hosted. And so I understand that there are certain businesses that want self-hosting, and we provide self-hosting. You're allowed to download your tour and host it yourself. So it's not the problem of self-hosting. I think it's the problem really of convenience for the customer. And in the end of the day, privacy, GDPR is quite compliant with hosting on other sites until you're not tracking or you're following the right procedures of being GDPR compliant. So it is tricky there, and I don't see it. I really don't see it, because if you look at some of the biggest questions people really have is like, how do I host my tours? No, I think this is me. Just 1 second.
It's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. You want to answer it?
Nah, it's okay. It's all good. I don't know if I have a call. I don't think I have a call scheduled, but working hard, man. So yeah, so I think that's the thing with self-hosted. And if when we want to create a solution, we want to create a solution that's the best for the customer, right? Because if you build a solution that's best for the customer, you will end up becoming the most successful company, right? And so that's been our thing, is like, we want to do what's best for the customer, and not just say it, but sometimes you have to take decisions that sometimes the customer doesn't even know that they need. And I think that's where, this whole debate, and you see this all the time in the group, people be like, just host it yourself, get Pano 2 VR, get KR Pano, if people want to go like gangster, they can go do that, but that's not what is the best for the customer, because the customer, any 3D, and you run a virtual tour sales group, the success of your business, your virtual tour business, has very little to do with what tools you use. It'd be great if you use our tool, but it has mostly to do with sales and marketing and positioning and finding the right customer. That's where you got to spend 90% of your bandwidth in, or even 95%. But if you are using tools that are cumbersome, that need maintenance, that need the ability to you have to make sure that the servers don't go down, then it makes your life a little bit more difficult. So I think that's kind of where the self-hosted stuff is. With Teleport Me and our API, a lot of our APIs are being used by our enterprise customers. We still haven't exposed them yet, because honestly, we have not found people that want APIs, like the kind of photographer / small agency customers don't really need APIs as much as we thought they would. And once we start building kind of the more marketing features that can help people, collect leads and send leads to different places and connect them to, Zapier and all of those things, I think then we'll see something. But I was actually expecting that a lot of our current customers that come from AppSumo, who are mostly marketeers, like yourself, right? I mean, the AppSumo crowd is kind of like yourself, and that's where I think you found our deal too.
Yeah.
I was expecting, I was thinking that a lot of demand would come for APIs where they would be like, oh, can I do this? But it just turns out that, the virtual tour market, they just need a virtual tour.
Yeah.
And obviously it's up to the education of, the customer that XYZ can be done. We can collect leads, we can do this, we can do that. But I'm not seeing that in the market yet. So hopefully, that was going to be our kind of our go-to-market strategy.
Yeah.
But I don't think that turned out the way we wanted it to turn out. So we're going to be more focusing on like different features now.
Yeah, okay, I get you. And I suppose one question that I was wondering, like you as say, like the owner of say a virtual tour software company, like, do you find it hard to differentiate yourself? Like I know you're very confident and that you have better software than I suppose all the other companies, and a lot of them are very much, I suppose, built to be say sales and marketing companies, and that they do it quite well. Like I suppose CloudPano was kind of the prime example. Like they very heavily push their product and do very good sales and marketing around it to kind of, I suppose, draw new users in. Like, do you find it frustrating, or do you find it hard to differentiate your business in terms of this industry? And is there quite, I suppose, a low level of education when it comes to the difference between the platforms?
I think I thought about that a lot. I mean, I think there is definitely, like you said, CloudPano, they have done a great job of like marketing and sales and getting customers to really like their product. And I think they've done a really good job. I think kind of innovating also. I've been tracking them, and they've done a good job. I really don't see a need to distinguish too much. I think that the people that use our platform truly love it. And some of the best panographers use our platform. So if you look at the sort of the demographic of customers that use CloudPano, there are certain demographic, and the demographic that use our products are a little different. They're mostly extremely professional panographers like Mick Tai, Clay Morhood, like all these guys have been doing. They're all like professional. I mean, not when I mean professionals, I mean they have enough experience with virtual tour software where they can say what's good, what's bad, right? And I think CloudPano does a great job of like marketing and selling the idea of a virtual tour business, where their tool is a part of that whole kind of drive to becoming successful. So I think the tool itself, I think I'm pretty confident it's a good tool. You're right about the sales and marketing, and I don't know. I think we've done a good job. I think for having launched something last year. I think people know of our platform. We have a bunch of signups every day, a lot of conversions on that, but no frustration, man. I mean, I think the only frustration I have really is that our market is so small that it's just like, you can't really grow. Even with the whole pandemic, when the virtual tour business kind of boomed, it's still a really small market. And that's the most frustrating part for me, because if you want to innovate, you want ideally like a large market to go after so that you can have more bandwidth to experiment in. But with virtual tours specifically, we were doing the other stuff before. We were not doing virtual tours before, and that's a large market, and we could experiment a lot. But in the virtual tour segment, it's such a narrow market. It's such a small market, and we already have like at least 6 players who are doing quite well. But I don't think anyone has crossed a couple $1 million in revenue. So that's pretty small.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's an important thing you said there. It is quite a small pool, and we're still kind of at the stage where realistically, like, we know exactly that. I suppose this is a viable option for, say, photographers to make more money, for, say, marketing companies to offer to their clients now. But there's still that kind of, I suppose comes back to probably why CloudPano is probably getting a lot of users in, because they're handling both sides with their education. They're educating, I suppose, those industries on it, and then bringing in people to try the software along with that kind of training aspect. And we're still kind of in that. There is that kind of a little bit of a gap where I suppose the awareness is there, but people are still not. It's not really a viable option from their point of view for people to cross over in industries. Like, I mean, it is a viable option, but there is still that gap where they will come across it and they might see, I suppose, case studies or other people in their industries crossing over and adding this to their list of services, and I suppose people are coming in. But there is that divide still, and probably just because it is a relatively new industry and really it only has come to the limelight since COVID. And like, I suppose virtual viewing solutions are around for a long time, but for a long time they did nothing. They were a nice photography tool, but now kind of the use cases really kind of come to the fore because of the unfortunate times.
Right. I mean, I think you're right about that, but I also think that there is a ceiling for how much money you can make in virtual tour business. Like, I think, for all the good marketing, I think Cloud Planner does. I think, they sell this dream of $1 million business using virtual tours, and honestly, I haven't met too many $1 million businesses on virtual tours. So I think that there is, like, I am very hesitant. So if there's anything that I'm hesitant about, is selling that dream of becoming a millionaire or having, like, a helicopter. I mean, helicopter's too much, but you understand what I'm saying. Like, I'm unwilling to go to stoop that low, right? To say that, this is the way you're gonna get rich. This is the way you're gonna, like, improve your lifestyle by making, $100,000 per project. And I just feel like those are unrealistic numbers.
Yeah.
The largest project that I've ever heard of is $50,000 over 3 years. That's the largest I have heard of.
I know a guy that came through our program. I won't mention him because he has, but he landed a gig for 100,000.
Oh, wow.
With only a government contract one.
Yeah, government contracts are different though. Like, those are, like, I mean, those are unicorns. Like, I mean, I tell a lot of my customers, is like, that's where the big money is. But to get a government contract is not easy.
Not easy, no. And you have to go through a lot of tender processes, and you're spending a lot of time.
You spend a lot of time and a lot of money compliance and, like, making sure. So government is definitely one place where you could make that kind of money, because they have specific contracts and specific requirements for it. But in general, I think that's not the case for most people. I think that you could run. I think anybody with a good photography skill, with good sales skill, and if they are part of the virtual tour sales group accelerator, can get to, I would say a 10K monthly revenue consistently. They can get to there, I think.
And that's the biggest struggle is it is a little bit unlike a lot of industries where leads are not as certain. And I suppose the channels are not that certain, and the ways in which you approach customers are not that certain. There's a lot. I suppose what we see on our end is that, I suppose, a lot of people teach hustling. Basically, they teach that you need to hustle to get those sales, and there's nothing consistent around it. A lot of the work goes into, I suppose, winning the customer and then moving on too quickly, and that's kind of the real reason that, I suppose, I started this business, was because we did that for years and realized that it didn't work. That we could have the best. We could have our best month ever, but we could make zero the next month, and that was realistically what was happening on a month-to-month basis. We were working on contracts that were taking months, and there was no kind of steady flow of income. We had some great years, but it was all over the place. There was no consistency to it. So I suppose typically what we've seen is that, and it's great to actually see that most of the innovation, that a lot of conversations I've had over the past couple of weeks have been about the likes of maybe 3D Vista and other tools where more kind of custom solutions are being built. And the great thing about that is that, especially for the likes of, say, industrial manufacturing, say architecture, engineering, construction, the solutions are still being tested out. There's no company that, it's not like other industries where there's a company that's been around for 10 years that it's hard to challenge. It is very realistic for a new virtual tour company. Like that company I was telling you about, that they hit the 100 grand contract. They also got, in their first year, they also won a university contract for 50K. And that was their first year of business. So that's from zero to that. So I suppose it's exciting in a way, in that there is a lot of opportunities there, but it's still all new, and there's no direct route. There's no copying another company, because everybody is doing new things when it comes to it.
Yeah, and I agree with you on this. I think that there is a lot of opportunity to make money, but and because a lot of people they don't know exactly what this business is, how to do it. I think still, I mean, I had a call with one of my customers. I think I think last Friday, and he's this guy who's out of Houston, Texas, and he runs marketing for dentists. That's his job. That's all he does, and he's got about 100 customers. And he was telling me that he was going to give virtual tours for free. I was like, what does that mean? He's like, yeah, I mean, he basically runs marketing campaigns for really high end dentists, and these dentists make like 60 grand per customer. That's their like lifetime value per customer. So they pay him a lot of money to get customers. And while the virtual tour itself does not make him money, but it makes him more useful to his customer. And I just thought that that's an interesting way to think about virtual tours, because I think a lot of people don't think of it as like a way to get new customers in something else, or reach customers that you already have. Because the virtual tour, I mean, we all sell a virtual tour for whatever, anywhere from $500 to $5,000, just a normal virtual tour. But the cost of making one is kind of very trivial. So I think if a lot of other people, like a lot of other agencies, think of virtual tours as an add-on to their service, and not a big add-on, but just a way to kind of like a throwaway or something of that sort, I think that would open up a lot more in the market. Because right now virtual tours are kind of expensive, not expensive, but they're sold as an expensive kind of nice to have, rather than like a throwaway. I don't know, it's just something that I thought was very interesting, because once you make it a throwaway thing, then it becomes kind of a market standard where everybody needs to have it, right? It's kind of SEO where everybody needs to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the way I kind of see it. It should be part of the solution. Your virtual tour shouldn't be kind of your core product. It should be really a means to an end, or a means to something different, like for the end customer. And if you can kind of position it in a way that it will help you get, I suppose, help the end customer get the results they want to achieve in a quicker manner, because it is a new kind of form of engagement, a new form of, say, viewing experience than that is typically known, because video and images is usually is the, I suppose, standard. And if you can kind of position it in a way that it does that, then that's, you're going to be on to a winner. But like, again, it comes back to then is that it's I suppose what we see is that there's the biggest kind of confusion in this industry is that when you're looking at, say, real estate, we're looking at, say, hotels, say, wedding venues, conference venues, say, smaller local retail or bar restaurant, like, you're offering a sales marketing solution without sales marketing results. So that's basically what everybody is trying to do. And people, if you can't actually have a discussion, what we see around the results starting out and about the proposed use within a solution, it's going to be a conversation about price every single time, and it's a race to the bottom. And it's funny, the industries where the average price per project is the lowest are the industries where it's hardest to sell to, which is ridiculous at the end of the day, because you're having an argument with a real estate agent over a couple of hundred, when the other industries, it's not about the price at all. It's about how it's actually used, how the tour is used. But that's not the conversation within the real estate. It's not about how the tour is used. It's a conversation about the price, and a conversation about how it sits on the website. And that's kind of the biggest disconnect. And it's funny that it's good to see that it's evolving from that. But it's also funny that I suppose I think the better any I suppose people on this call that are listening is just like direct your focus. It's good to have a focus on real estate because you can get those quick wins, but try and put it on autopilot, or try and put it at the back of your mind and look elsewhere, look kind of bigger and better, because that's where that's where better solutions are, the longer term value is, and they're the industries that actually use it on a day-to-day basis. And that's one of the most annoying things from a content creator's point of view, is that you could do a property, it could sell, and that tour is then invalid within a week.
Completely useless.
Yeah. So it's funny, but I suppose it is very much, I suppose, still evolving.
It is the beast. This is the beast that you have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly.
It is kind of the beast you have to deal with, because it's the most obvious place where a virtual tour has highest impact.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I think it is a good thing to kind of space out your payments and maybe make sure that you're getting some amount of revenue with the real estate thing. But you're right. I completely agree with you that real estate is not the space. And I think that, and this is again goes back to the whole API stuff, which is, when people want to use a virtual tour to do things with it, a virtual tour kind of falls really, really, really like flat. I think that I saw that example that you put up last week about treasure hunt kind of thing that was created or Care Panel, right? One of those, I think. And I thought that was really interesting. But it's that stuff needs to be more extensible. I think if you can create those things much better and make it more user friendly, I think there's a huge win for virtual tours, especially in education and training. But it has to be easier to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think training is going to be a big one coming down the line, especially because there's, like, I know just from working some of the industrial work that we would have done, that it would have been something that it would have been so obvious, an obvious replacement once we showed them how it was done, like, and especially for the likes of, say, maybe whether it's oil and gas, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's even a construction site, whether it might be, say, high risk areas at play, is that if you can actually have, I suppose, a virtual, inspection or virtual, even a training tool around that for new employees or for contractors, for example, like, it makes so much more sense to do that in a classroom-based scenario if it's a real kind of experience, as opposed to bringing him there. And I suppose that was one of the biggest things. I know that guy is actually coming on next week for having a discussion, but I'm interested in picking his brain on that. But one of the biggest findings that we would have got, one of the biggest kind of, I suppose, similarities between kind of the industrial plants and manufacturing plants was that they all wanted to try and reduce the amount of noise on site. Like, they were all had a lot of visitors coming on a daily basis, a lot of site inductions taking place, a lot of, I suppose, PPE that they were going through because people would have had to, I suppose, gown up to go into these areas, and that it was such an obvious way that they could actually reduce the amount of noise on site. But again, it comes down to then how it fits into their processes, and it's because it's relatively new. There's still no clear-cut way of how you kind of integrate that with their current processes or replace them at the end of the day. But that's definitely one thing that I see as I suppose, biggest opportunities financial-wise for new businesses entering this industry, or especially people who have a background in that. It's funny, you wouldn't believe, I suppose, on a weekly basis how many people we have. I talked to a guy actually today that works for, say, an engineering company who specialised in say working with, say, pharmaceutical plants, and he was looking at real estate and retail as well. And I was just like, why aren't you looking on your front door? Like, this is something that that nobody else knows. You already know this industry. You already know why this might be a good fit. And it's funny the amount of people that kind of look towards what they think is what they should be going after with virtual tours, when really the value is long term, I think, in the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think that's up to us as platforms and, like, yourself to kind of educate people that things can be done differently. I mean, people will do what they can, what they can see. A lot of people don't, you have to show them what can be done and having good examples of it. And that's kind of, where we as a platform need to do better. We have a lot of people using virtual tours for a lot of crazy stuff, but we don't focus them. And I think that I wish, that we could do that better. But sometimes it's like not sure if it's kosher to show what people are doing. So
and it's hard to cover everything. I know that myself. It is hard to, I suppose, like, you want to be focusing on, I suppose, your own platform and all. But then there is that, I suppose, how do we show people exactly what they can do without showing people what they can actually do? Because that a lot of time is what is separating those people who are working in oil and gas and likes of those industries that are using this technology. They don't want other people to find out what they're doing because it is relatively new to use cases and solutions, and they're easily replicated. That's the thing. It's easily replicated. It's not that hard to create a virtual tour. It's not that hard to learn the likes of 3D Vista or them, like, there's a learn curve, but you could create something like that, I suppose, that was seen as a custom kind of a hazard solution that you saw within probably a week or two, like, and it's not that, like, so
Yeah.
yeah, so there is that kind of secrecy, I think, a little bit within this industry still.
Exactly.
So,
I think the you know I don't know if you saw it, but I have a talk this tomorrow or day
yeah,
after
tomorrow's
tomorrow. Yeah, with the chairman of HTC about how virtual tours and VR are gonna combine, and I'm gonna talk a lot about the training stuff because I think that we were very bullish on VR till VR crashed and burned and died for a small company like us, right?
Yeah.
And I think training and 360 in training in VR is extremely powerful for things that are tough to train for like, for example, how to train people who are doing fire safety drills.
Yeah.
We had a we have we had a customer when we had our product. I mean, I really hate that we lost that customer, but they did police training.
Mm-hmm.
They were a cash cow. Like, they paid us so much money to build like some very core components of that training.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, they had us a SaaS product to train policemen and women to be policemen and policewomen, and they would have in VR headsets. You would basically be in a room,
Mm-hmm.
and some parts of it were 360 tours, some parts of it were 3D Unity assets, and it was really cool. And I saw the power of training there.
Yeah.
I think that's when I realized that 360 and 3D assets and virtual tours can be very impactful in the future. Probably not in the format that it is in today, because like I said, it's not extensible. The way the virtual tours are built technically are not extensible to do anything that is needs some kind of very core storytelling. And I think 3D Vista has done some stuff. I've seen some examples of them, of a game and things like that, but that's still not like API based. Again, I'm ranting on the same thing, but that's where I think the real kind of value of virtual tours, and a lot of people who are already into this space can see value in the future, because I think VR is coming, these headsets are coming, and when they do, like, there's going to be this massive market of training open up, because training is so expensive. And if you can reduce that to a 360 tour or a 360 training program, and give them a headset and do remote training, that would just blow up like billion-dollar industries in a matter of months or years. So I think that's something that's massive.
Yeah, we would have played around with even using 360s as part of, say, training. We did it with a specific, say, it was kind of like a bioprocessing institute, and where they would have tried to integrate, say, into their own kind of e-learning platform, the use of say the 360s, but there was that kind of bit of a disconnect there. Like, is there a place for 360, say, tours, 360 or virtual tours in training to take in the future, or is it all going to be VR? Like, is there that kind of same level of, I suppose, immersion? Not really, but then is it more accessible on a grand?
So you're right. I think you're right about the kind of trade-off between immersion and accessibility, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, there is a sweet spot that I think most people will be able to afford. The problem right now is that the devices are not good enough for training. They cause nausea. They're not scalable, and so that's where the issue really is at this point. But when the devices are good, there's going to be a sweet spot between immersion and accessibility, because not everybody can afford to pay some 3D developer to create this massive to the point 3D reconstruction of things to train in. The majority of the market will want to have like a cheaper, more believable, accessible version of a training module that they would have to do in real time. And if that can be done using a 360 virtual tour, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely, and I suppose I don't have, I suppose, knowledge of this, but like in terms of say the 360 that most cameras capture versus the likes of say a Matterport camera, like what's going to be the difference? That because I know would say the Matterport camera, that spatial awareness, would that offer more kind of like, would the 3D aspects be more kind of suitable or more useful in those kind of environments moving forward, or will that be where the opportunity is? Like, will there be another version of Matterport that not Matterport itself, but like that 3D, that quick 3D capture could still play a big part moving forward if the quality gets a little bit better, but still it doesn't have the amount of bandwidth that is required for the likes of, say, the point clouds or whatever. Do you see a place or a difference within those kind of two methods?
Oh man, that's a good question. You know, the right answer is that like LiDAR is going to essentially win in the end of the day. But I think that the Matterport system has to evolve. That's number one. And between 360, like, how to answer this correctly, because I think there are like, you know, many versions of this answer, and I think if you look at it on a spectrum, like, there's no right answer, right? It's like, do you need a PC or a laptop, right? A PC is great for gaming, you know, a PC is great for other things, you know, video processing, like, you know, I don't think that there's going to be a only one thing. I think like I said, I think there is going to be a sweet spot. And for example, like, a sweet spot would be a very high RAM laptop, right? So that's a sweet spot between a Chromebook or an iPad and a gaming laptop, right? And so I think the sweet spot would be a mixture of 360 photos, some amount of 3D capture of the space, extensible APIs that can connect to the point cloud or to spatial orientation within the 360 photo, so that you can you can programmatically automatically trigger hotspots based on spatial orientation, so on and so forth. So the capture part is still going to be 360 photos and some amount of 3D data, but the important part is how do you connect the 360 camera photos and the 3D data, whatever, whether it is a massively dense point cloud or is it an IR cloud like the way Matterport is, to an extensible API and to like more extensible actions that can be taken. That's where I think the value is, because what you capture is what you capture, but how do you play with what you have captured, right? Like, that is the tough part.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's very true. Like, that at the end of the day, that's the first. Like, anybody can take a 360 photo. It's really, I suppose, how you use it and what's the intended purpose of it, and that is where, like, I suppose, me, as I said, as a marketer, the APIs is something that would excite me, because it adds another layer. It adds another layer that you can actually build another solution around. You can become more specific around. You can become more results orientated around it. You can actually easily integrate it easier into maybe the current systems that a company is using, because every company is using some sort of a cloud software in some form or another, whether it's for sales, whether it's for marketing, whether it's for project management, whether it's for, say, even just employee training. There needs to be a way to be able to, I suppose, hook up those things together. And that's where the value lies, because you can't run a business if you don't have systems of software in place to allow you to be able to do your job quicker and more efficiently. So if you can't combine two of those things together, you're not really offering a photography service.
Yeah, exactly. You're just a photography service. You're not going to get anywhere. And I think, you know, that's what we thought, you know, this is what I'm going back to again. It's like, when we did the AppSumo deal, a lot of our thought process was that we're going to find these customers who are going to be innovative in the way they think and the way they connect the dots between industries and virtual tours and what can be done with digital marketing. We didn't find that. So I think that, you know, sometimes customers bring out features. Right? When I want to do something and I have a customer and I say, okay, Vineet, can this be done? Can this be done? You know, we have the system to do it. We have the system to bring out APIs. We have the system to bring out interactivity that I don't think any other platform has. But we need to find the right kind of customers that are willing to experiment and say, okay, Vineet, can we do this? Can we do that? And then we kind of like slowly build out of the system, instead of just like giving people a bunch of APIs, right? So I think that's where we are stuck at, which is we need to find the right early movers into the space. And I don't know where they are. You know, I'm trying to find them, They're not in the groups. They're not in the groups. You know, because the groups are. They're not. They're trying to. Everyone's trying to make a business, but no one's trying to innovate. And so I'm trying to find that group of like 15 people or 10 people who are gonna, who want to innovate and then show everybody else that look at this amazing things that we can do with virtual tours and 360 photos, and how much money we can do because now we are selling this to customers. And that's kind of where I think the sweet spot is, and I think that's where someone like yourself can like really kind of get into maybe educating some of your clients that, hey, can you look at this industry? Like you said, someone called you up and said, hey, how do I get into real estate? And you're like, why don't you just look at your factory and like figure shit out there? I think we need that more, which is like, hey, can you look at things differently? Can we incorporate things and get things done? Because before you couldn't do anything because like I said, the softwares never let you do anything. Now hopefully we can get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the thing about AppSumo is people are probably coming into this our universe for the first time. Like when they're seeing this, they're seeing the virtual tour, but they're probably not thinking further than that. Really what you're probably talking of is people who have been in this industry, who have been doing this for not a long time, but are more familiar with it, that are trying to build out more custom solutions to actually take their business to the next level. Because if you don't actually try and do that, if you don't try and niche down to some degree or become more specific or try and build out something more than just a virtual tour in some use cases, you're always going to be kind of just grinding and hustling for the next sale. So you might have to wait a little bit longer.
Right. I mean, I don't know if you caught the interview I did with Paulo. I can't. Tosolini. Yeah. I don't know if you caught it, but like his stuff is really cool. Like I would love to pick, like, kind of steal some of his ideas and make them into features. Because we can, right? And we are kind of, there's something that I'm gonna be launching hopefully soon. Which is kind of like a mashup of a couple of different technologies that make things really nice and cool. And yeah, so that, we want to focus on that. We want to focus on kind of taking the industry forward. I'm not really, I mean, I would love to do like Street View stuff and all that stuff, but it does not excite me anymore. But, customers want Street View publishing, and I just tell them to go to Street View, So, I mean, at some point you gotta like, think forward, and that's what we're trying, trying to balance, making money, and moving forward. So it's a tough balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's funny. There was Paolo Tosolini, when I started 5 years ago. He was the one that was kind of innovating mostly with Matterport and with these technologies, and he was very much trying to merge all of the kind of, I suppose, experience technologies together and see how they kind of crossed over solution-wise, over technology-wise, and how we could kind of combine maybe AR with VR with the tours and all. So yeah, he is really kind of at the cutting edge of it, and they just test the limits. Like, I suppose, good, like people who are like, you like to have somebody who wants to try and test your software, break it, and see exactly what you're doing.
I think, there's only this much, clients you can deal with and invoices you can invoice. Like at some point you got to do something to like kind of, feed that innovative mind that everybody has. I think everybody has it, and feed it grows. If you don't feed it, then it kind of dies. So hopefully, I mean, I'm seeing some comments here. Joseph Mays says, I am innovative and I would love to be part of the network. Yeah, absolutely, man. Send me a message. Did you know that you could see the comments here, or is this the first time you were figuring it out?
It is. But we were so in depth in the conversation. Let me pull up another one here. Think. So please ask Vineet if offering lowest prices in the market is the best selling point for him and his solution.
Please ask him if offering lowest prices in the market is the best selling point for him and his solution. No, I mean, I think, is he talking about our product, or is it
me? Maybe, is he?
I don't know. I mean, Facebook user.
Yeah, it doesn't come up for some reason. I think you have to still learning, still learning. As I said to you beforehand, I was looking at your live videos and it made me up my game, so I had to look into something else. Added a cool skin over the more.
I mean, I don't know how much you pay for StreamYard, but I think it's the same cost as Restream, right?
I think so, yeah, I think so. Maybe I'll have some people coming down or something next time.
Yeah.
Let me see. So the value of 2 hours in direct relations to story salvage. Yeah, I agree with that. Let me see. I think Olivier had something. So that's why Pano 2VR and KR Pano was so interesting to develop virtual tour platforms with a lot of dedicated custom interactivity. So yeah, I suppose they're kind of in the same kind of a bracket as I suppose 3D Vista to some extent, where you can really kind of.
I think it's different, right? I think Pano 2VR and KR Pano are more kind of programmatic softwares. Like you have to write code to get it to work. So I think that I think Olivier is right. Olivier is right about it. Which is those kind of softwares do give that flexibility, but not everybody can code, right? No one, and people should not have to learn to code to be able to create great interaction.
Yeah.
And that's what we are trying to do, is that like not have something that is kind of custom built and you only have very limited features, but try to give more flexibility while having the ability to interact with other softwares. And I think that's where, again, I think Pano 2VR and KR Pano don't do a good job at, because you need to build APIs to really connect with. But the idea of interactivity, I think, is right there. I think KR Pano and Pano 2VR are very, 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 very powerful softwares, and they've been there for, I don't know, ages. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been there a long time. Yeah. And it's let me see. So virtually. Okay, so actually another question I wanted to ask you before we finish this up, I suppose, what have been the biggest takeaways you've had, or some of maybe the new information that you've got that might, I suppose, give you some idea into direction or where some people should be focusing on, just from the last couple of interviews you've done. I know you've done it with some industry experts and some people have been doing some studies and all. Can you maybe share some information or the key takeaways that you've got from the last few interviews that you've done?
I mean, I think takeaways. I think the interviews that I've done are like, I mean, the first one was Robert Scoble. He was kind of all over the place.
That was interesting. He started in the car and he's outside, and yeah, I enjoyed that.
I mean, that's Robert for you. And I thought it was interesting what he was talking, but I think 90% of the people didn't understand most of it, because he kind of was going at 50 miles an hour. I think then the second one was with this researcher, and she had some really nice things to talk about. And I think definitely that one was really interesting. Did you catch that one?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I caught about half of it, but yeah.
That would be a good video to even share with your course members, because she talks about a lot of like real statistics from her research about how virtual tours increase, how sales prices, and how people are thinking about it. And these are things that we intuitively know, but it's always good to have like a researcher do some research and throw some real numbers at it. So that was very interesting. Then was Paulo, and Paulo's whole thing was be innovative, how to find high-paying customers by mixing and matching technology. I think there's no real takeaway, man. I think it's I would say that the one thing that I've learned with all these interviews, I've done 5 of them, and they're all 5 very different people. And the interview with Mick was about flash photography.
Yeah.
Because
well, yeah.
Again, like completely different from the previous one. So there was no clear trend. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, and then the next one is about VR.
Yeah.
And so it's again in a very different trajectory. And the goal for that whole series is just to like, I don't want to use the word inspire, and that's why I'm not like, like your talks are very kind of real world, right? Like, okay, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and I think that's great. And for me, I'm really like, my whole focus is to bring like these, hope people kind of like really think above selling virtual tours, like using the tools and technology to to upscale their service.
Yeah.
Provide something more than virtual tours, more than like real estate photography. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just that, can you think bigger, and can we help you as a product and as a technology company to get there, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking of that whole interview series. So there's really no like takeaway. I think nobody is actually in the virtual tour space except for Mick, and I don't think Mick also is like I don't think he doesn't sell virtual tours. I think he does create a lot of them and really nice ones, but I don't think he sells them as far as I know. Maybe.
Well, I suppose that's a good takeaway. Think bigger than virtual tours. Think like it's, as you said, it's a like that's what I suppose I try and show people as well. And these is that we have conversations with, I suppose, a lot of virtual tour companies. That's what we have lined up, because again, we're just looking at, we spot some solutions and we're like, okay, I want to talk to this. How are they using this? How are they positioning this? What are they doing? Any inside scoop on it? Like, because they're very much, I suppose, we're only seeing these solutions through the likes of, say, these communities, which are quite small, but a lot of it probably is hidden. So it's good to be able to see on your end, then talking to those kind of, I suppose, even higher up people, and kind of what their vision is in different industries, but very much have a crossover and very much all kind of heading in the same direction, which is important to be able to get a good overview of, I suppose, of those kind of people.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think there's a question by Olivier again. He says, do you offer an embed solution in Teleport that gives virtual tour agencies clients the ability to manage their own tour by adding and changing hotspots, for example? Yeah, we do. We have, but that's only for like, the business enterprise case. We call it the organization, where you can invite your customers and they can edit, they can add panels, they can do whatever they want. Obviously, there is an approval process that you as a agency owner can do. And so it's kind of we call it the organization. So if you go to our pricing page, you'll see that we have some organization tools for enterprise edition.
That's a very useful tool, because especially when you're talking about maybe virtual tours for industries where there might be a crossover between maybe departments where they're using different instances. It's a good way for them to be able to manage it, and that's one thing. That's a really good way to be able to scale your price up with the same bit of content. We would have had 4 different solutions with the same 360 tour or same virtual tour, but there would have been different use cases, different departments. So that's a very good one, actually, and that's something that we don't actually. That's something that I actually haven't seen a lot of other platforms. That kind of, I suppose, client management kind of process, because that is a very real part of it and very needed part of the process. Because at the end of the day, if you can't hand it over in an efficient manner, and it isn't something that they can actually use and manage, you're ruling out, I suppose, recurring fees. You're recurring out, I suppose, those kind of higher revenue kind of sources. And that's something that I actually didn't know you did. So I must look into that myself.
Yeah, we do that because, like I said, a lot of our customers are enterprise, and so we have a couple of really large real estate agencies that basically what they do is they have a marketing team, and then they have realtors, and so they ask the realtors to go and capture the photos, and they put it into the solution, and then the marketing team kind of fixes it up, adds the branding, adds the hotspots, and all of that stuff. And all the accounts are managed by the agency itself. And then for every account, we get paid.
So just have one more here, I think. So I think 360 tours and e-commerce is interesting. I'm interested to get your opinion on this. I'll give you my opinion then, but I'm interested to hear what you think about.
Oh my God, this is a loaded topic. And I'll tell you why this is a loaded topic, right? I think this is a loaded topic because I think everybody thinks it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
I think, and the reason for that is I think that I've seen a lot of virtual tour companies sell this as like the thing, and honestly, it's not the thing. Not because it's not a good idea. It's a good idea, but it just is not effective. From an e-commerce perspective, selling, I mean, it depends really. Like I saw an example of like a company use it for selling like furniture. Maybe that's interesting a little bit because furnitures are big enough and you can kind of walk in the space and look around. So I get that. But from other stuff, like anything that has to be like e-commerce spatial, I think I can see it, but most e-commerce is kind of like products and like very good. So it is a great idea. And we had a very large company come to us asking us to pilot, and we piloted with them, and they piloted. They paid us a lot of money, and they didn't see the results that they wanted to see.
Yeah.
And that's because it's not a pleasant buying experience yet.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's my thoughts on it. That's exactly, I suppose, the exact same things. I've seen it being used quite successfully for the likes of furniture stores or larger products where that kind of spatial kind of awareness is very useful, or to be able to see it even in comparison to a room or other furniture, where you can really kind of get your bearings and make a more kind of an informed kind of decision or informed process around it. But for the likes of, I could see it again from kind of a sales marketing background as kind of a PR tool, maybe for a new store or for that kind of a thing. But as a kind of a practical use, it's not practical. It's not practical. Like it's not a better buying experience. It's not really feasible. You're spending longer. There's more opportunity. There's more ways that a customer is going to leave without buying something than if they're on a website and they could narrow down what they're looking for within a couple of seconds. So I don't see it as a practical thing. It is. I suppose the experience themselves, some of them are quite nice, and I do see it from a PR point of view. It can be quite useful for companies. So I suppose there is opportunity there for sales. But yeah, I don't see it as something that is going to be. I don't see it as something that can take off long term for smaller products or for regular consumer products.
Yeah, it is not that easy, and it really sucks because I think a lot of people think it's a good idea, and we get a lot of requests for it. I mean, we get a lot of requests for integration with WooCommerce. That's like our most asked request. But it's just, we would love to take your money, but from whatever we have run tests, it just doesn't seem to work.
No, and I think for anybody thinking of selling, actually, I see here, I think for high-end galleries, that's another use case actually that is, I suppose, a very realistic one.
I think we both agree that there are certain industries where for e-commerce, especially when there are large objects that you can kind of walk around, you can kind of like rotate if you have the ability to add kind of a 3D model within it. I think it definitely makes sense. But general e-commerce, which is kind of products and all that stuff,
and I think if you are, I suppose it's probably worth saying that you're going to go down a bit of a rabbit hole. You're probably going to end up getting paid less, or your time versus how much you make is going to go down, because it's going to be something that's going to be tricky, and it's not going to be straightforward either. So it's approach it with caution, I'd say, for a lot of industries.
Yeah, not right now. I mean, there is a scenario in VR where like a 360 shopping experience could be great.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's but you're right. I mean, the thing with shopping is that it's so much about like narrowing down quickly, and I don't know. I still am not very sure how you do that in 360. If anybody has any examples or ideas, that's my email, vineet@teleportme.com. Send me an email or add me at Vineet Devaya. I don't know. But I think I'm back to this post. So I would love to hear it, because I get so many requests, and I always tell them it's not going to work. And they're disappointed, but everybody thinks they're good. So I'm definitely open to hearing more ideas on that. Okay. Have you seen any good implementation of an e-commerce solution?
No, I've seen one or two furniture stores. There are one or two furniture stores and one or two art galleries. I know, I suppose, especially with terms of art galleries, the biggest kind of, in terms of the art galleries, it's not really feasible for someone to buy through the tour. But what we see it as is where you can actually have some sort of a lead capture on it, where you can confirm that, I suppose, somebody's going to purchase something maybe in a gallery as a result of going through the tour. That adds a whole another dimension to it as well. That's then it comes down to how you kind of can customize the experience to actually capture somebody the minute they come in, so that you can prove that something was only sold as a result of them, I suppose, in this experience. So that's kind of another kind of a difficulty in itself, and something that is still very much evolving at the moment. But it kind of so it's relatively new. It's relatively new, and I suppose use cases are still quite on the lower end. compared to, I suppose, I haven't seen anything, I suppose, stand outish that has been too impressive yet, to be honest.
Yeah, agreed.
So look, I suppose we're after going over time there.
Was it a 1 hour thing?
It was an hour, yeah, an hour 10 minutes. That's good going. Free flow. What we do is we might set up another one in the near future. I know. Well, I'm sure there'll be something else controversial that'll come up in the next couple of weeks to give us something to talk about as well.
I mean, it's a small market, it's a small industry, but everybody loves to hate Matterport. So I think there's definitely a lot of reasons. I mean, I don't hate the product. I just hate the company.
Yeah. Well, I suppose a lot of people mirror those things, but there's still a lot of users out there as well. So look, we'll leave there, Vinny. Thanks very much for joining me, and thanks everybody for joining us as well. We'll see you all later.
All right, see you, man. Thanks.